Good morning, everyone. Today we are exploring one of nature's most impressive travelers, the Arctic Tern. This remarkable creature holds the record for the longest migration on Earth, traveling vast distances across the planet each year. From breeding grounds in the Arctic to wintering areas in the Antarctic, the Arctic Tern's journey is not only long but incredibly complex, demanding resilience and adaptation. Today we'll investigate what makes this bird's migration so extraordinary. Any questions before we get into the specifics?
Yes, Professor. How far does the Arctic Tern actually travel in a year?
That's a great place to start. On average, the Arctic Tern covers about 70,000 kilometers each year. Just think, this avian traveler journeys from one pole of the Earth to the other and back again, often traveling a circuitous route. This journey takes it from the Northern Hemisphere, where it breeds in places like Greenland, Iceland and northern Canada, all the way across to the Southern Hemisphere, spending the winter in the Antarctic region. And it does this every single year, suggesting that over its lifetime, an Arctic Tern can travel up to 2.4 million kilometers, about 3 round trips to the moon.
Wow, that's impressive. But why does it travel such a long distance? Couldn't it just stay closer to its breeding ground?
That's an excellent question. The Arctic Tern's migration strategy is all about maximizing daylight. By traveling from the Arctic in the Northern Hemisphere's summer to the Antarctic in the Southern Hemisphere's summer, it experiences the maximum daylight exposure of any species on Earth. This constant daylight provides it with an abundance of food sources, like small fish and crustaceans, which are crucial for its survival. Also, avoiding harsh winters means it can conserve energy, as it doesn't have to endure extreme cold or limited food supply. Essentially, the Arctic Tern follows an endless summer, optimizing its environment to meet its nutritional needs year-round.
But that kind of journey must be challenging. What are some of the obstacles the Arctic Tern faces along its course?
Absolutely. It's anything but an easy voyage. The Arctic Tern encounters many natural hurdles, from severe weather to predators. During migration, they cross vast open seas and face unpredictable storms that require a lot of energy to navigate. They are also vulnerable to predators, especially when they stop to rest or feed. Another challenge comes from human activity. Climate change is altering weather patterns, and warmer temperatures impact the availability of nutritional resources along their migratory routes. And since they are highly dependent on specific stopover points to refuel, any disruption to these areas, whether due to pollution, fishing, or habitat loss, poses a serious threat to their journey and survival.
How do scientists manage to track such a long migration? I mean, it must be difficult to follow a bird across the globe.
Tracking the Arctic Tern has undoubtedly been a complex task, but thanks to advancements in technology, scientists have developed small lightweight tracking devices. These devices, called geolocators, are attached to the bird's leg, recording light levels throughout the day. By analyzing these solar data, scientists can determine the bird's position based on sunrise and sunset times, helping them map the tern's migration routes. Studies have revealed that Arctic terns follow certain predictable flight paths and often stop at specific feeding grounds. This technology has opened our perspective to the amazing routes these creatures take, including the incredible meandering course they cross oceans to take advantage of favorable climatic conditions.
Professor, with such long distances, I imagine they'd need a lot of energy. How do they manage to fuel themselves for such a massive journey?
You're completely right. The Arctic tern requires an extraordinary amount of energy. Before setting out, they build up significant fat reserves by feeding intensively on small fish and crustaceans, storing energy for the journey ahead. They make strategic stops along the way to refuel, taking advantage of areas rich in food, like coastal waters where fish are plentiful. Remarkably, they seem to know exactly where these feeding grounds are, and they time their journey to arrive when food is abundant. This energy-efficient planning, combined with their lightweight bodies and streamlined wings, allows them to travel immense distances with relatively low energy expenditure. It's a brilliant adaptation to one of the longest migrations on Earth.
Does the Arctic tern stop to rest during migration, or is it continuously on the move?
Great question. Although it's known for its long flights, the Arctic tern does indeed enjoy breaks to rest and refuel. They make several strategic stops at feeding grounds along the way, particularly in areas rich in fish, like the coasts of West Africa, the southern tip of South America, and even in the mid-Atlantic. These feeding stops are essential for building up the energy they'll need for the next leg of the journey. And because they are navigating such vast distances, these rest points also allow them to recover from the physical strain of long-distance flight. But what's remarkable is that the terns spend most of their migration over open water, making brief land stops only when absolutely necessary.
I see. With such specific needs, are there any changes in their migration due to climate change?
Indeed, climate change has introduced new challenges. Shifts in sea temperature, for instance, have affected the abundance of fish in certain regions, which means the terns may find less food at their usual stopover points. Rising temperatures in the Arctic are causing changes in the terns' breeding habitats as well, affecting the timing of their migration and egg-laying. These species are remarkably adaptable, but the pace of change due to climate and environmental factors is rapid. Some of them are already adjusting by altering their migration routes slightly, but there's only so much they can adapt to within a limited period. This makes the Arctic tern an important species for scientists, studying the broader impacts of climate change on migratory flying animals.
It's amazing how they adapt. Do we know how they manage to navigate such long distances with such precision?
Of course, foul navigation is one of nature's great mysteries. The Arctic tern, like many migratory birds, likely relies on a combination of environmental cues. They are thought to use the position of the sun, the Earth's magnetic field, and even the stars to navigate their journey. Young Arctic terns migrate for the first time without prior experience and still manage to reach the Antarctic, which is quite astonishing. Some studies suggest that they may also be able to detect magnetic fields, providing an internal compass of sorts. But despite years of research, there's still much to uncover about how they navigate so precisely.
Are there any specific times when they start their journey, or do they just migrate whenever they're ready?
Yes, timing is very important for the Arctic tern. Typically, their migration starts around late August or early September when they leave their breeding grounds in the Arctic. By late October, they are well on their way to the Southern Hemisphere. They'll spend the entire austral summer near Antarctica before beginning the return journey in April. This timing is critical, as it allows them to arrive when food sources are plentiful at both ends of the Earth. What's particularly interesting is that they don't always follow the same route each time. They may vary their path depending on wind currents and food availability, showing an impressive ability to adapt their timing and route to maximize survival. Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion on the Arctic tern. From their staggering annual journey of 70,000 kilometers to their remarkable navigation skills, the Arctic tern reminds us just how resilient and adaptive nature can prove. Migration is an instinctive process, but it's also a fragile phenomenon highly dependent on environmental stability. As climate change and human impacts continue to alter ecosystems, it's crucial that we monitor these movement behaviors to understand what changes could affect not just the Arctic tern, but other species as well. Thank you all for your questions and curiosity. I trust you leave this session with a deeper appreciation for this fascinating creature and the wonders of migration. Class dismissed.